recording for that one. Please record for this one.
Okay, it'll be on second clap. What we chatting about? Yeah, there it is. Recording.
Yay, it's recording. What we chatting about? What we chatting about?
I guess so. I was trying to... Welcome to our vlog.
Hi, friends.
Hello,
It's
everyone.
been a while. Very long while.
It has, unless you've seen us recently, then it's not been that long.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen us recently, then it's been a while, and we do miss you all.
Lots have happened.
A lot has happened.
A lot has happened to us this past few months, or just pretty much like this past year.
Right.
And we wanted to kind of share what's been going on with our lives for a while, and primarily kind of like our journey where we are today, right?
Yeah. So I guess we'll start at the end, kind of. We are currently in Florida, and how do we get here? That's kind of what we want to share with you guys today, and hope you guys get some sort of blessing or positive experience from our conversation today. So.
Yeah, we're just gonna be chatting.
Yeah,
it's kind of good for us all to kind of look back. So yeah, I think we were kind of like talking about like where to start all of this, and for me personally, this I think I'd started back in November because I was very overworked, I was burnt out, and I was neglecting so much things that, you know, were healthy for me. Like my health was decaying, my spiritual walk was gone, like I didn't have any energy whatsoever to interact with people, even if it was like with family that just lived 30 minutes away. I was always like, I don't want to like hang out or anything like that. And so there was a realization that came for me sometime in November that, you know what, I really do feel like I'm being called to just leave, like quit your job, because I think part of that also is I was relying on my own strength, on my own capabilities to kind of just make ends meet, to make like all of this like happen, because Kenny was still in school around like that time. So I don't know, I just like was feeling like this really big pressure, and I feel like that's how I was acting in November. I'm not sure. Remember?
Yeah, I mean, I remember we talked and I said, hey, you know, once I get done and get a job, you don't have to keep working there. Like you can you know, take some time off for yourself and kind of recuperate. But I do remember, I think it was one day I was, you know, all my classes pretty much because of COVID, all my classes were online. So I was finishing a class around like 8 o'clock at night, and I remember you came home, maybe not that late, but either way it was dark outside, but you came home and you were like crying, and you were just like, you're like, you know, I can't do this anymore, I want to quit, I need to quit, or you know, it's just killing me or something like that. And
it was pretty much like, I really felt as if I was slowly dying in there, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah,
everything.
And it was one thing that I was seeing you looked really sad, and just like really, you know, just like really down, and that, you know, obviously, I felt for you, and I wasn't necessarily gung ho about you quitting your job at the time, because I was working like a graduate job, which was, of course, helping pay for my education.
Yeah, paid to walk.
And that was just a part of it, but
paid
like
to walk.
It wasn't really like something that I would say, hey, this is a sustainable living on just me going to school and getting this measly little salary. But, you know, we kind of did the math, saw what little bit of savings that was there. And ultimately I was like, well, it's going to be tough, but we could at least get through till some like months. About May.
Right, because
May
that's
or
about
June.
the time that you would be graduating.
Right, so it was a very... we'll say faith-based thing. Very scary, of course, for me.
It really was. And that's kind of even the reason why I didn't even really want to admit to myself that who's going to put money on the table? How are we going to survive? Like, I just felt like that whole responsibility fell on me. And I had a moment where God really said, no, this is not about your ability. This is not about even your strengths and even what you do best at work. It's about me. And that's what I want for you to focus on, Catherine. This is what I want for you to actually like rely on. I want for you to know that I will provide for you. I will keep you safe. So even if you don't work, it's okay because I'm going to be able to be there for you. At this point also, when I mentioned like the whole like, you know, my health was decaying and everything, it really was like sometime in October I had gone to see a gynecologist, and we had found out that I had, I think, like a polyp or 2 polyps, whatever it was.
Mini
Like
polyps.
there was just like something in there that, like, you know, you guys, like, I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and those are some of the things that have been causing me issues like for years. At this point, you know, like, kids were not really something on our table because Kenny was in school. At least for me, I really just like didn't feel I was physically even ready for anything in that regard. And I was just like, no. However, if this was still something that we are wanting to have in the future, if we wanted to be able to have a family, then I would like to be able to know that my health is actually in a good shape.
Right.
So that way, if that is an option for us in the future, then why not? And even if that is not a part of our future, I still want to be able to still live. I want to still be able to enjoy my time here on earth, like living healthily. And so in December, actually late December, we had gone I had gone into surgery to remove my polyps. And funny enough, when they opened me up, they also called can you tell that part of the story? Because I always think that's funny. So
yeah, I don't know if it's funny. I mean, maybe. I don't know if it's funny. But either way, so I think, yeah, sometime in December, Catherine went under the knife. And they were going in to kind of like clean her uterus out. I can't think what the technical term
our gynecologist
for it is,
like pretty much like said like, hey, so there, I know for sure there's at least like 1 polyp that she said, because otherwise if there was none, then they wouldn't have had this. But we had kind of like agreed that, hey, she's gonna go in there and actually remove and clean out my uterus, so that way if there was like anything else in there.
Yeah, I think it was like your endometrial lining was very thick.
It was just super,
and so it was
crazy.
causing like just really bad like
bad cramps,
dysmenorrhea, all this other stuff.
Like,
and so anyway, so she was in surgery, you know, and I'm sitting there sort of in the waiting room waiting, and probably like 30 minutes into the surgery, the doctor calls me, and I think they called me on my cell phone, but I didn't recognize the number, and for whatever reason, I get spammed all the time, so I tend to not answer if it's a number I don't recognize. I figure, well, if it's someone who does know me, they'll leave a message or they'll text me later. But you know, they called, I didn't recognize it, so I just didn't answer it. And then a few minutes later, the receptionist calls my name, and they're like, "You have a call from the doctor," and I'm like, "Why do I have a call from the doctor?"
He first told me, "Oh no, she's dead."
And so, you know, the first thing the doctor said though was like, "Everything's fine. Your wife is okay." But then she informed me that like one of her fallopian tubes, thank you, was inflamed, like so much inflamed, and that they wanted to remove it. The other one would be intact, so you know it wouldn't stop us from having children potentially in the future, but it would be safer for them to remove it than to leave it. So, you know, I gave the go ahead. They went ahead and did it. The surgery finished. Everything went fine. Within maybe about 2 hours, I was able to go back and see Catherine, and of course she was very loopy, so she didn't really respond initially.
Like, in my head, like the moment I woke up, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go pee so that way these guys can discharge, because I don't want to pay any longer. I was really like, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
But it was so bad because I don't think I was really supposed to do that. Like, I started.
Well, they wanted, you know? So yeah, I mean, the doctor wanted to make sure that, you know, everything was working down there. So they did want her to pee before they would discharge her, because it was just like a day, you know, a 1-day surgery type of thing, right? Like an outpatient surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, we were just kind of like waiting there for her. I don't know, maybe like 2 hours or so. I don't think it was. I think it might have been, because there was a while that we were having to wait, and you kept trying to pee and nothing was coming out.
Yeah, I kept kind of like going
and
back
so
and forth.
they kind of kept, you know, putting you back in the bed and just kind of like waiting there.
Long story short on that one, you know, I was able to go home.
Yes.
And I was able to kind of like recover. And I felt like for me, that was kind of like the start of addressing my whole health thing, because I knew that me leaving my job was just going to be primarily like faith-based. I told Kenny, I was like, I really need a break. I'm so burnt out. I'm not going to really look for another job or something like that. I just, I want to take this time for myself. And that's kind of why we looked at our numbers to see how that was going to be feasible. Because if now there's only one income that's coming, and
It's a very small
it's a
income.
very small income, we have to be really good stewards by it. And we kind of thought, well, if I was going to be just a homemaker for the time being, that could really help us out, because I could cook a lot more at home. I could be a lot more, crafty with some of the things that we have at home. So that way it's not going to be too crazy, because, life, you're always like going through like what kinds of conveniences are out there, instead of just really being good stewards of what you currently have. So started my journey becoming a housewife, pretty much. And my focus was pretty much health, so I tried to go to the gym as much as possible. Started joining the it's actually called aquatic intervals, but it's aqua aerobics. And I was like with a group of old ladies there every Wednesday. It was really fun. But the point was like for me just to like get moving, get a better relationship with food, and the whole thing. And to be honest, like for me, through like once I left towards pretty much like where I am today, definitely lost some weight because of just like that shift. Like the moment I think I got out of like that first month, I think I like already lost like 5 pounds alone, just because stress. No stress, or I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of like what started my journey up until then. And so for me, I was just like a homemaker at that point. And yeah, that's my story.
Yeah. And so, I mean, for me, I obviously was on a really different journey. I actually had a really good time, even though most of my course was online, and I didn't want that. We moved to Tennessee in part because I wanted to go to in-person classes. I learned better that way. I enjoy connecting with people, as many of you know, I'm sure. So for me, we're in Tennessee. Catherine told me that she wanted to quit her job, and so we kind of settled on that. We were okay with that. And going into my final semester, I was doing my what we call like an APE, which is an advanced practical experience or practicum experience.
An internship?
It's pretty much an internship, and so I actually graduated with a degree in health policy and management under like Masters of Public Health. But I also got a certificate in like health policy. So I did a lot of health policy stuff, but one was based out of was it a nursing advanced degree, was based out of that, so that's where the certificate came from. The other one was in public health. But suffice to say, because of that, I had to do 2 internships at the same time. So one I did with a law professor at the university. Another one I did with a policy think tank based out of Nashville. So both of them were really great. I was able to kind of do a lot of those stuff online. A lot of it really was researching. I did a lot of policy research for like 5 months straight. And it actually was a great experience, and really kind of, I think, helped prepare me for the work that I'm doing now, ironically enough. But in that time, I was also looking for work. I was looking for jobs because I was like, okay, there's a very hard deadline.
Yeah.
Where we don't have any more money. Catherine's not working anymore.
Right.
I don't come from money, so I don't have I can't fall back on any sort of trust fund.
Right.
Most of us probably understand that.
And I think even like at this point, we were kind of like also thinking, okay, so our deadline was kind of like May when you graduate, right?
Mm.
And we were trying to decide, were we actually going to be like, are we going to continue being here in Knoxville or whatnot? And a lot of that was going to depend on your job or whatever job you were going to get. Because
right.
Pretty much like for me, my thought process was we moved here to Tennessee because this whole journey started with you. And I wanted for you to be able to get the chance to find what it is that you want to pursue. So that way, I want for you to get something that you like are passionate about, things like that.
Right, yeah, and so for me that I started looking into it, and it was kind of weird in a sense because I'm the type of person who I have I'm a big vision person, so I know what where the end goal what I want it to look like. I don't necessarily know how am I going to get there. Like, what's the next step and next step and next step and next step. And so, as many of you know, my background, or more say my educational background is pharmacy. But I'm not working in the pharmacy. I'm not particularly licensed. I'm not licensed at this point, anyways. And the kind of field that I want to be in is not so much like healthcare in the sense of like working in a hospital, working in a retail clinic, or working in just in some pharmacy. I want to do more of like the policy side of things. But of course, I'm not super, let's say, gung-ho and be like, oh, I need to, be friends with some sort of like government official.
Not usually the best like networking person.
Right. Like and I think in part of that for me is like I never like to like know people just for the sense of being able to use them as a resource. I want to actually just genuinely know people, which is, I think it's good, but at the same time it can kind of play bad if you need to actually like have a bunch of connections. So anyway, so I started applying, and I'm not really thinking too much. I'm putting my application out everywhere. Like I'm mostly applying on the East Coast because I wanted to stay, as close to my side of the family as possible. I did try to look at some jobs in Knoxville where we were staying, but of course there aren't really many policy related jobs in Knoxville. And
health policy related.
Well, yes,
right?
Specifically health
More
policy
specific.
is the area, right? So health policy specifically. And so there were some opportunities in Nashville, but I didn't necessarily have a connection out there. Also, Nashville is very expensive to live, and I didn't necessarily want to uproot us and move to Nashville for a job that may not pay all that much. I think I applied to Washington, D.C. Of course, as many people know, that's big policy world, right? Big health policy thing. And I guess part of my thing, too, funny enough, is as I was doing the public health program, and I had part of this understanding, but realizing that even when we're talking about health policy or we're talking about health in America or just in general, there's a lot of different intersections with that, right? That aren't specifically health related. So we talk about things like where you live, right? The type of education you have, the type of job, how much money you can afford, right? Your ability to access like a doctor or something like that. But there's a lot of different things that intersect that aren't all just healthcare related. And so as I think of that for myself, I think, okay, well, what work can I do that would really be able to be impactful overall for someone's health? And of course that made me look and say, well, there's so many different opportunities out there. So I started really applying to just so many places that I could find.
Everywhere and anywhere.
And of course I started getting rejection after rejection after rejection, and you'd be thinking like, oh, what a great resume, but no, thank you. And it's just all stuff. And I've been told by, a lot of people that, well, yeah, you're such a unique person, you have this pharmacy and you'll have this public health and, all this stuff, you'll be able to get into a lot of fields, but I wasn't seeing that. And so come, I think like March, I got like a job interview, like a request to interview. And actually, I think I had gotten like maybe one or two other sort of follow-ups about that. But anyway, so I ended up getting this job interview. It was very weird and strange. It was like all online. And I'm just going to kind of jump to the end of this one just to not labor it. Maybe in another vlog we'll talk more about that, but it turned out to be a fake job, and it turned out to be a scam, where it pretty much, it was a job that seemed too good to be true, and it definitely was too good to be true, and it was a very good scam because like I tried to do my research and look into this company and look up the person, and all that stuff was real, because
essentially they stole whoever.
They somehow they got their own identity. The business's identity.
That scammer stole someone else's identity.
And it was like a brand new. It was a startup like Medicaid company that was based in Ohio.
Oh,
no, it was Ohio. And so it was something that was like sort of interesting to me because I was like, okay, it's kind of trying to combine tech and healthcare like Medicaid, and so I was like, wow, this would be a great company to be a part of.
And it was remote too, which was I think one of the big things. That was
like a huge draw. And of course with COVID, it's shaken up a lot of things. There was all stuff, but ended up finding out that it was a scam. They got money from me in a very stupid way, of course, because at this point they had offered me the job, and that wasn't where they asked for money, but it was like they offered me the job, and then it was like, well, there's some parts you need some equipment that we need to get for you, and we're sending you the money. They actually like sent me like a check, But then they're like, well, let's try to get this as soon as possible. So let's have you like purchase the items first, and that's when it all kind of went under, and they got like all my information because like just like a regular job, I was filling out all this stuff for W-2 and all this stuff.
And socials, like all of those
yeah,
things.
so it was a big thing, Of course, I had like told the immediate family that got a job, stuff like that. I had to rescind that after I found out, which was very tough. And obviously the money that we had for savings to help us get to May,
all the way to May and June.
that was gone at that point. And then I had to go and like cancel like a bunch of information, like bank account information. Had to go and freeze all my credit reports, like just all this stuff happened, and it hit hard. And thankfully, family came through. Family was willing to help us out, and that did help us to get
so
through.
Much, like, to our families.
It's a blessing. I know, and that's one of the things. Like I understand that not everyone has that, but I'm so grateful for the family that we do have. It really was a blessing to get us through that time. Yeah. I think for me, the biggest thing wasn't the monetary loss, because even though yes that happened, our family was, like I said, was able to come through and help us out. But for me, it was sort of like the pride or the humility or whatever I'm not even sure those are the right terms to use for it, but sort of like my pride was broken, and I was just so angry and distrustful, and I just was like embittered by this whole thing, and then I was just becoming distrustful because I started getting actual job interviews, and a lot of them, in fact, were not online, but were over Zoom or remote because everything we're still kind of in COVID at this point.
Yeah.
And a lot of things are distance, and a lot of them are healthcare government related positions. But it was like, it was just for me. I was just like, who's to say this is a real thing, right? This one thing was fake. Maybe there's other people
He's
are
now
fake.
like triple checking background.
Like
and
I am going
over and over
crazy.
Again.
Like I'm like, I will not believe this is real. Even when I start working at the place, I'm not gonna believe it's real until I get a paycheck, and even then I'm gonna distrust them. But yeah. So I went through this experience. It was really, really tough.
Yeah.
Catherine was very strong during that experience, and it was a blessing to her. And
I feel like that's kind of like where it was a big blessing for me to be a homemaker at this point, because I really did not feel as if like I would have had any capacity to be emotionally, spiritually, to be there with you during at that time.
Right. No, I mean, it's one of those, it's interesting. I mean, it's
tough.
It's a double thing for me. So one, in that regard,
having you there was great. But I also felt like it was my fault.
No, it wasn't. It really was a thing where there was a part of me that was bitter because I was like, well, now we don't even have like your job to fall back on.
Exactly, and that's part of me. I feel like, oh man, did I make a bad decision on this one? Should I go back? Because I knew they didn't want me to leave. And
right, yeah, they really wanted you to stay.
Yeah,
like,
they were
willing to offer you to pretty much to work from home. And
yeah, but at this point I was like, I know, like I knew for me, no.
Right.
At that point, I was just like, I can't.
Yeah, and so even this time, I'm still having to interview, even though I'm really going through like a depressive state at this point. Like I really didn't want to get up and go.
It was really tough to see him through this.
My internships. Like I still had to finish all my internships. I was taking a law class as well, so I had to finish that. I was still working at the not my internship, but like my graduate program. My graduate assistant program. Thank you. And so I still had to go through all those things and kind of keep a smile and just keep going through those motions. And it worked out well. The people that I was working with at the time were very gracious to me, and like they allowed me to, like, I could take off work whenever I wanted to, pretty much. It was very, very loose. They were like, you do whatever you need to do, you're good, type of thing. And so I was still,
you got paid to walk.
I got paid for more than just walking, but that was a big part of what I did. I worked with older individuals, not like I'm working with the elderly, but the people who I worked with, they were sort of like people who kind of have retired, and they're coming into like a nice, cozy, like consultant job. And so I was kind of working to help them stay active, because you're at a desk a lot, so you want to try to get up and do their thing. So that was kind of part of my job, was trying to help them just be active and be engaged and be a little bit more intentional. And so with that, so that was the job, but it was a great opportunity, great experience. I really, really did appreciate it and just really enjoy the people I worked with. And so during this time, I do start, I continue to apply. Eventually, randomly one day, I actually got like an email and then a call from Florida. from the state of Florida, the Department of Health in Florida. And I should say that before I guess this whole call, my father had a heart attack, and it was a very mild heart attack. He's doing fine, thankfully. But he had a heart attack.
That was really concerning.
And he was up in Tennessee at the time, where all of us,
at least like we're there.
Right, where all of us, myself,
there.
my siblings are at. So that was a good thing. But then he was back down in Florida with my mom, and he was still having some health issues, and my mom was having some health concerns as well. And so for me, I felt really bad because I was like, okay, I can't help them out really financially, and I'm up in Tennessee, so I can't even necessarily be there with them if I need to.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of that made me think, maybe let me look and see if there's some potential opportunities down in Florida, because maybe I can, if possible, all right, maybe we can move down there and at least be closer to them and help with some issues. So as I was saying. So my parents were having some health issues, so that made me want to that made me consider pretty much coming back to Florida. And I originally had said I was never going to come back to Florida, but I've learned throughout my lifetime,
never say never.
Never say never, because every time I say that, I end up in places
says
that
never what?
I was,
never
I end up in places that I wasn't expecting to be. So I had applied to a couple places in Florida. Didn't hear anything back. So I just kind of moved on. Had some interviews in Tennessee around Knoxville where we lived. So I was like, okay, I'll start going on those ones. I went on one, got and specifically for me, I was looking for more like government related positions. So I had a couple of different opportunities, and actually applied and interviewed with the state of Tennessee. And the first job that I heard back from, they passed on me. So I kind of responded to them. I thanked them for it. I was like, hey, this is something that I did, and they're like, no, you were great, but there's another candidate, and we ultimately decided to go with her, but we think you'd still be a great great candidate for another position, which was ironic because it was another position that I had already applied to. So I ended up interviewing for that one as well. And it was funny because I think it was like June 1st when everything happened.
Yeah.
What?
So real quick, also before June 1st had happened, at this point, I think around May, I started feeling a little bit better. Personally, it's for me with my situation that I can kind of see myself start exploring again possibilities about working. And so even though I still wanted for you to take pretty much advantage of the fact that I want for you to be able to choose your job and location first, because I feel as if my area was going to be a little bit more flexible. And so I had already started to put myself out there as well. And I think immediately, after a week or something, I pretty much put my applications out there mid to end of May. And I think after in about a week, I started getting responses about hey, can you get an interview or whatnot, which is a very different experience, I guess, compared to Kenny.
Yeah.
But I think May 31st, I got an interview with a school actually that we kind of discovered on one of our trips, and their school over there was one that we kind of discovered while we were walking around, and I looked it up and kind of was reading what some of the things that they were doing there in lines with some of the stuff that I had also worked with before in the past. And I was like, oh my goodness, wouldn't it be such a great opportunity to actually work with these people in this program, because it was the right population, it was the right area for me in terms of what I was doing with at-risk students, and it was just really special. And so for me, I think May 30 May 30 was my interview with them, and May 31st they had actually called and asked me hey, we're really highly looking at you to be our prime candidate for this position. And I was like, oh, babe, is there a place in Kentucky maybe that you're willing? But at the same time, I was still really hesitant, because I feel as if I would have just said yes completely to this job, that's going to put us again in a place that maybe you're not going to like, because I still wanted for you to focus on what it is that this journey started with you, and I wanted for it to end with you.
Right. Yeah. And I think so. Yeah. When you had told me that and showed me it, of course, part of me was like, oh man, I can't believe she's already found a job opportunity before I have, and I've been searching for like months, like half a year, it seems like. But at the same time, obviously, I was very excited for you, and I mean, any opportunity is a good opportunity. And so I
Yeah.
actually remember I did
'Cause
look.
I had UT Chattanooga also at that point.
Yeah.
There was another school actually also that called me. I can't remember which one, but those two were the ones that Southern also.
Yeah, I think that was when
Southern
you had
also,
applied
but
to.
I had.
Was Oakwood something you looked at?
I think I did, but I didn't actually.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, continue.
So
June 1st.
well, I guess I was gonna say even before that, I did look at Kentucky as well. When we had found out about you, I looked at Kentucky because I was like, well, hey, you know what? I'm not getting any offers here. I'm not having any luck. So, hey, you're getting something. Let's go there. So I looked at Kentucky. I actually had applied to government position there. It was a job that had been about like I think an hour from where the school was, but we were like considering one. We could have even not conveniently, but we could have stayed where we were in Tennessee and did long commutes.
2 hours.
But right, or I had saw that there was like a place we could move to, and it was sort of halfway between,
Yeah.
and so we could commute that way, and
Like
that would be like a
halfway.
30-minute drive, wouldn't be that bad. And so so actually I did apply to that, and I actually did hear back, and
I
they
think
did
they
want
wanted
me.
you.
They wanted me to interview, but they were also kind of like I think when originally they wanted me to interview, and I called, and after June 1st, so this is kind of thing. So June 1st, I go on an interview. I get called from the state of Florida.
Yeah.
So, and this is, I guess, the interesting. I didn't really say this earlier. I had actually interviewed with the state of Florida, with the health department where we're at right now. And it was like at the beginning of May. The beginning of May, and I remember asking them, "Hey, when are you gonna, when would I expect to hear back? Because I'm trying, I gotta get a job. I'm trying to consider my options." And they're like, "Oh, within like a week." And I was like, "All right, sounds great." A week goes by, I don't hear anything. Another week goes by, I reach out to the person who kind of originally contacted me. And they were like, "Oh yeah, they're still in the process. They're still considering you. So you're still in the, I guess, in the pool." And so I'm like, okay, great. But then I never hear back from them at all, right? 2 weeks, literally a month goes by from the interview time, and I didn't hear anything. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, they clearly found someone else to go with. That's fine.
Yeah.
We'll look at other things. And so, like I said, I had to apply to Kentucky. They contacted me wanting me to interview. And like on June 1st, I got 3 different job offers all at once, and it was like a blessing now. And I remember even saying, I was like, okay, God, this journey I'm on, and like there's sort of a patience that I need, and I need to kind of wait and not necessarily rush into things. But I'm at the point to where whatever company or whoever offers me a job, I'm going to take it. Whoever the first person is who offers, and I guess I'll say within reason, I'm going to take it. And so like that morning, the state of Florida contacted me saying, "Hey, we want you to take this job." And I was like, "Seriously? It's been like a month. I thought you guys forgot about me." And they're like, "No, we've been busy, blah, blah, blah. But we want you to take the job." And so I was like, "Yes, awesome." And then like within a few hours, I go to my interview on the spot. The interview people, they offered me, this was a more of a county position, but this was within the state. This was near where we lived. They offered me a position. That one I had to turn down because it didn't pay enough. And it wasn't that I'm not in this for money, but it just wasn't enough for us to really be sustainable. And
I
then
think at one point they were saying like people who are working in that job or area has like a second or third job, something like that.
Well, you have a partner at home who is also paying your bills, right? So because it was just me at the moment, so that was the thing. And then I also got another job offer from this was from the state of Tennessee, not a county, but the actual state had also offered me a position as well. And so I had like 3 offers all at once. And ultimately I decided to pick the Florida one because this is something, I'm skipping around sort of my story, but when I interviewed for Florida, originally I had applied, and the description on the website was way different than, like, it just kind of seemed like you worked for like the public health pharmacy area somewhere, but it was just sort of like, it sounded like a receptionist position. That's really what it sounded like, and I wasn't obviously really interested. I just was like, well, it's in Florida. Let me just throw put my resume out there just because, whatever. And so then when I started interviewing with what would be my future boss, my future bosses, I guess, it was actually, they were creating a program, like a state program, and they were needing someone to really help to get it going. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I didn't say this to them, of course, but I was like, this is not at all what they like put on the application, or like on the website. But as I'm interviewing with them, I'm like, this would be amazing, like an amazing opportunity for me.
It was like an ideal opportunity.
Yeah, it was exactly what I was wanting to, and it gets me into government. It gets me into some policy making. It gets me into actually like helping to create a state ran program. And as some of you may know, Florida is like in the top 5 biggest states population-wise in the nation. So to work for a state like that and to help create a state-ran program is a huge thing.
A huge opportunity.
And so I was like, like I said, when I interviewed, I was kind of shocked, of course, by what the actual job was, because I remember even telling Catherine, I was like, this would be a great opportunity for me. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't think necessarily that I got it anyways, but then it turns out that I did. And so I ultimately took that one, and I had to kind of, and this was the funniest thing, because after that job came in, I got about 3 or 4 more companies offering me a position. I had to turn everyone down.
Yeah.
And that was like, prior to this time, I'm like, man, no one wants me. And then all of a sudden I realized that's not necessarily the case. There was many opportunities for me out there, and that was its own blessing. But yeah, so that was like June 1st, and then we still had to wait to actually like get all the paperwork and everything in. And at this time, I think Catherine was getting ready to go on like a little vacation with her family down in Florida.
So pretty much like, June for me was really weird and rough, because June, I think like, like end of May, for sure, I know like June 1st, I got COVID. And my COVID was worse than Kenny COVID, because I was not feeling, was not feeling really well. I think our GoPro is telling us that it's about to die, but we're not using that right now. But yeah, my COVID was really bad. Like just compared to Kenny, I was just like I just like did not feel any good, but I was still interviewing through all of this process. And so once actually Kenny said yes to kind of like that job, I just said, great, I am not going to be applying at this time, because I need to, 1, take care of my health, because I just not feel great at all, and 2, now we're thinking about, okay, well, what's going to be the plan going down to Florida, because at this point I also knew that my family were actually coming down to visit, and they were also planning on visiting Florida. Like our family over at Orlando wanted to come down to visit, have like a reunion in there. My sister Nebraska coming to Orlando also, same thing with my parents in Africa. We're all gonna be there. We're trying to do this like for my grandma, but unfortunately she passed away like in May, so we weren't really able to be there like together at that point, but we still wanted to go ahead with the plan so that way we can still see the rest of the family. So I knew I had like a trip to plan for, like, with my family being involved, but at this point I knew that Kenny was not going to be here. So we kind of like agreed that in preparation for all of that he was going to go ahead whenever, at this point, like whenever you were going to start, and I was going to stay behind to start packing whatever it is that I had to pretty much like do, because ninja we want to, I wasn't gonna work at this point. I was just gonna focus on getting out of there from Tennessee. So I believe I still got like a few interviews like along the way, and actually one of them was FSU, because Florida State University, because now that Kenny had actually gotten this job, I had like this 1 month before his start date for me to kind of consider, okay, well, do I want to actually start working right away once we get there to Florida, or maybe still kind of like take my time, because at this point we kind of agreed that your salary at this point would be like, hey, and kind of like support the two of us if I still didn't go to work. Right. And, for me, I know that I wasn't gonna be like a homemaker for forever, because I'm a career person. I want to be able to improve my professional career career and still advance. And so for me, I just thought, you know what? Why don't I just also like throw my resume out there and see if maybe Florida State would bite, maybe the Tallahassee Community College will also bite, who knows. And I actually got an interview with Florida State, and it was similar to some of the things that I'd already done in the past. But unfortunately, I did not get that job. And I think like the person that had actually initially communicated with me actually suggested that I put in my name under like a similar position, pretty much like in a pool of other advisors. I said, okay, well, I'll go ahead and apply in there because at least I still had some kind of shoe in, but I also had no idea what that was going to do for me. So I kind of like just put the whole job search, interviewing things like on the side, and just focused on this whole July vacation with my family, and pretty much like started packing. And so that's pretty much like fast forward now to us here in July, because that's when we were going to drop you off.
Right, so didn't know an exact start date. I mean, we did, but then there was like an issue with the salary, and so they had to get that fixed.
Yeah, that was...
and so, you know, if you've ever worked for a government, you know sometimes things can be a little bit slower than you'd like them to be. So originally my start date was going to be June 8th. And then they're like, well, we may have to push it back a week or something like that. And I had already kind of like, I already had planned, well, we're going to be getting out of here. I'd like to start working so we can actually start, you know, making income again because, you know, we're running on fumes at this point.
Right.
And thankfully, I was able to keep the July 8th date, which was kind of around the same time that Catherine was going to be going with her family to Orlando. So we kind of, so we ended up,
because I think like, the ideal, I think the date that we'd all agreed on was to meet July 11 at Orlando.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, like that Sunday or something like that.
Yeah, that Sunday.
So we ended up coming down. We drove separate cars at this point. We drove down to Florida to Tallahassee, which is where we live now, and you know, had like an Airbnb. We went. We came into town, I think, on Thursday
afternoon, because his first day was Friday.
Right, my first day was like on a Friday. It's how the
whole system works here.
Yeah, the pay kind of gets done. Friday to Thursday. Friday is our first day instead of Monday. But anyway, so we got down here, we kind of relaxed, you know, got some food, and then Friday morning, you know, wake up, getting ready to leave.
And actually, at this point, it was, so I had like a day there to kind of like chill, and I was like, hey, you know, I'm gonna scout for apartments and stuff, because that was, I didn't have anything else better to do. I didn't want necessarily firm to do like this whole Airbnb stuff. And I got an email from pretty much like that person that had contacted me. We still wanted to know if you actually are interested in the job. And I was like, oh, what? And so I just like called Kenny, and I was just like, they're asking me if I'm still interested. And you were just like, well, what do you think? And I was just like, I feel like this is too good to be true or something like that. And so I was just like, yes, I'm still interested, but also with the caveat that I wanted to tell him, like, well, this is also where we're at in this plan. And so, but pretty much he said, like, yeah, you're next candidate. Yes. I just kind of like said yes there for some odd reason. Like, I just knew that it felt right. And when I kind of like told him like, hey, so we are actually in the process of moving here to Tallahassee, I really need to know when the start date is, because we won't be out of Tennessee. At this point, we have decided that our last day was going to be July 1st.
No, 31st.
Sorry, July 31st. And my start date at Florida State would be August 3rd or 5th, that first Friday of August. Yeah, of August. And I was just like, that's not going to be a lot of time, but for some odd reason it just like felt really right. And so I said yes, and I knew now that going to Florida, like even though this whole vacation like with my family, that I just felt secure that not only did Kenny have this job, but I also had a job lined up, and by the time that we moved here, I was gonna start right away. So that's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a very interesting journey. I mean,
it has been.
So I started July 8th. You know, worked here, was kind of by myself for the first month. Didn't necessarily enjoy that. I was able to, you know, as part of us moving here, to see my parents. So probably that first month, I went to my parents like almost I think 2 or
Like
3
2, 3
weekends.
yeah.
And so they live. I mean, they live in Central Florida.
And
So
also finding even like this apartment was really a godsend. You know, it's not our most favorite apartment, but just to be like thankful enough that you were only at an Airbnb for like a week, and then now we're here.
Yeah, so we were.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's true. And getting this apartment, I was able to visit with my parents a lot, and so pretty much, you know, this whole experience has been one for me, for us, that's kind of shown, you know, where God
is
can and will
us.
move, and you know, faith always takes a big thing, and I honestly understand going through a trial, right, going through hardship. It's not easy, and there were many times where I was like, I'm not feeling it, God. I don't want to be in this. I want, you know, to be saved out of this whole situation. But it taught us quite a bit. I mean, it obviously, one, taught us to be grateful, be appreciative, to realize that there are so many others who go through hardships, and that's kind of even why, you know, we are in sort of the journeys that we're in, or why we're in the fields that we're in. Like for me, it's been a journey, and I'm still on it, right? But knowing that I want to improve the lives of other people, it's very impactful for me. That's something that I love, that I'm actually getting to help create that. Like I'm actually helping, like every day I'm working to create a program for the state, and it's really awesome. You know, I'm working ultimately to help people who are low income, who don't have funds for different purposes. And then you get to work with students.
Exactly. So for me, I still get to work with young people, with pretty much like students first, like students who are just like coming into college for the first time. And I'm still working with like areas that I'm still really, really passionate about. And I think what a huge godsend is being able to work at a place that is a lot more flexible and more understanding about like our lives outside of work. Being able to also have a lot of professional development opportunities, because those were things that I really felt like I did not have before. So to know that I'm in a state school that's a bit more secure, and again, kind of like the benefits and the just like the things I can get back just by working with them would be a lot more, there's just like a lot more options for me out there. So now I've always kind of like considered maybe pursuing a PhD in the future, and that is something that I can kind of like foresee doing in this place where I am working at, because they do support professional development for their staff and faculty. And so I just like feel superbly blessed that I think God has really taken to us like with this adventure. And for me right now, like this is my first semester in there. I got a lot of stuff to learn. Like the things that I've known before, I'm now translating pretty much like to how it's working here at Florida State, because I know what it is that I know I'm good. I know what it is that I'm doing. I just don't know how to really pinpoint that yet to what FSU has, because I'm learning the system, I'm learning their resources, I'm learning like the different peoples in there. So equally for me, that's really fun. It's also a little bit challenging because we had to start from scratch here. We don't really know anybody, but thankfully, I feel like kind of like now we're gonna fast forward to today, like what's our lives are like here in Florida. And so we found like an SDA church here. It was like the first SDA church that we actually ever been to, and we just kind of like kept going back. We found some like really good people that were just like really welcoming. I like my job. It's not as hot anymore. I'm just gonna say anymore here in Tallahassee.
It's winterish.
It's winterish time right now, and even though yes, I am wearing some kind of like long sleeve, it's just honestly
it's not that cold. But
it's really not that cold. I didn't have anything else like to pull out of my closet. It's just like,
yeah. So
it's
been great. Met a cousin here, so that's something
that was interesting,
unexpected. So have family here in town. So we found a church. Really great community. The people that I work with, I really appreciate and really enjoy them.
I love the people that I work with.
I mean, honestly, like I'm not a morning person, but besides not being a morning person, like I love getting up and going to work each day. I love working. It's funny, I kind of work in two different places just because of like the work I do. And so it's been an awesome experience. It really has been.
God has been so good to us. Like
it's been great
this year, even though we went through so much this semester, this whole year.
And I mean, and to be honest, we went through a lot emotionally. We didn't have to go through as much. Like really physically, like so because obviously the family was able to help us out financially. There was only 1 month sort of where we were like in a somewhat limbo, and that was May. And so I was still graduating in May. In fact, one of the neat things, I didn't even think to say this, like I actually got I graduated at the top of my program. And so I was awarded
like
awarded for that. I got awards at work for this
in the community.
for like a community thing that I helped to just do, I guess, as part of just my job. And I remember one of my professors was even saying, like, yes, you got to stress about the future, but in this time, just appreciate what you got.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool. Like, it was, I mean, obviously I wanted to do well, but to be awarded like the top, and I don't know if I don't think I was the top of the program. Within my program, I was the top, and I was definitely at the top. I think my lowest grade, I got 1 A-, and I was so saddened by that because I wanted a 4.0, I got like a 3.999. But that's fine. It's whatever.
You're like my student that I had to deal with this week. Oh boy.
But yeah, so it was a blessing. We, like I said, we only went through 1 month of sort of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Between May and June. As soon as June came, we had a job and we knew where we were going to be headed to. Right. It really was just that 1 month. And really, I think as I've mentioned, I think to my brother once, I think I had a period of 2 weeks between school and my job. But of course, it felt like a lifetime, but it really was only just a 2-week period. So that's really just, it's a testament to what God will do and has done. And so I hope you guys are enjoyed our story, are encouraged by our story. Hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays.
Yeah, this was kind of like our life update for all of you guys out there. We didn't really know how to write this all out.
It's very long written, so
that's why we wanted to do it as a video.
Right, it's also probably long
video / podcast, but
we wanted just to catch up with you guys.
Yeah.
And we hope to be able to see you guys and look forward to the opportunity when we will be able to see all of you in just different spaces, whether it's back in the Midwest or here in Florida or Tennessee or just wherever you are. We really appreciate you guys and love all the people that we've been here to know over the years.
Thank you for all of you that have been keeping us in our prayers, like our families that have been so good to us, like for supporting us through all this ordeals, like for those of you that have known our story since there from the beginning and just kind of just comforted us all along the way, because this was an interesting and tough journey, but we also knew that God was in all of it. And right. Even though that was like really hard to say it at that point, like even acting on it was really like a different challenge in itself as well. But honestly, like with God, with you guys as our support, we knew that we could get it through. Right? Yeah. So yeah, I guess like for our future plans, at least for us in here, we'd like to be able to still kind of explore a new area here in Tallahassee, and hopefully we'll be able to post more and share more of what our lives are here.
Yeah, hopefully, I think in the new year, I want to travel more in the state. I grew up in Florida, but I never really traveled around it, and so that's like one of the hopes, to travel in Florida a lot more, and then maybe around the country a little bit more, and potentially internationally a little bit more. With that, of course, is more expensive, so we'll see.
Right.
But yeah,
because eventually, like I think we're actually planning to seeing if maybe we could buy a house here also.
Right.
Because we see ourselves being here a little bit more long term than before. At least like for me, especially with my job here, I want to be able to get a little bit more long term here because benefits are great, opportunities I guess are great too, and there's
a lot to do in this state, so a lot of like work opportunities.
Exactly.
To do, so yeah.
Exactly. So, but yeah, that's kind of like what we wanted to kind of share with you guys here, and we want to wish you and your family happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and
Kwanzaa if you celebrate it.
Kwanzaa.
I don't know, but maybe you do.
But we love you all. We miss all of you guys as well, and yeah. The cats are great. They're just locked out, and you guys probably have been hearing them in the background. So,
yep.
MappChats out.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.